Hello, 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 and welcome to a tutorial video on political movements in Victoria 3. Political movements was one of the big changes that came with the Pivot of Empire DLC and heavily changed how you interact with interest groups. If you haven't played the game in a while, you might be wondering, why can't I bolster or suppress interest groups? You're not alone. When the DLC came out, we all were saying that.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
The answer is you can't bolster or suppress interest groups anymore. Instead, you bolster or suppress political movements. But what does that even mean? Well, let's get into it. I'm going to get into the details on political movements, but if you'd rather just get a quick explanation, the last chapter of this video is called The Short of It, and you'll get a quick nutshell of everything I'm about to talk about. So if you want a quick explanation, skip to that part. If you want a real explanation, well, here it is. Let's look at the United States for our example. You'll find your list of political movements on the right-hand side, right here. The US starts with an abolitionist movement, along with a pro-slavery movement. Two opposing movements. The numbers next to the name are showing you the political movement's support and activism. We'll dive into the details on these two numbers, but the thing you'll be paying attention to while playing the game is the higher the support number is, the more pops you have supporting the movement. The more important number to glance at while playing the game is the second number for activism. If that number is 50% or higher, the movement will start generating radicals every month. Let's look at the details. You'll see a movement has a core ideology. This is the same thing your interest groups and people will have. So just as an IG or a general can have the anti-slavery ideology, so does the movement. When you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the laws that the movement are interested in and what their stances are. There are three types of opinions they'll have: endorse, oppose, and indifferent. If you have a law enacted that the movement doesn't like, it means you can use this movement to help you pass a different law. You can see here the abolitionist movement currently does not like the law of legacy slavery, which is our current law. You can also see they don't like the other slavery laws as well. Interestingly, they are indifferent to slavery banned. I'll get into why slavery banned is in the middle and not under the green thumbs up a little bit later. But what this means is if you try to enact the slavery ban law, this movement might support you. So what does their support mean? Let's look at the top of the screen where it shows you their support and activism. Support is showing you the political power of the people who support this movement. On the left, you see the total number of people who support this right here. But remember, not everyone has the same political power. You can see what people's potential political strength is by looking at your distribution of power law. 15 in order to vote. Pops who can't vote have no political power. You can also see with census suffrage, you get an additional 30 points of political strength based on your literacy rating. So you'll see if you go to your population tab or the population screen and go to the detailed list, you'll see a breakdown of all the different people in your country. So let's look at Yankee Protestant peasants. Peasants make a very little amount of money. So if you put your mouse over their political strength, you'll see they are not eligible to vote because their wealth rating is 10. And the minimum under census suffrage is 15. Whereas if you look at Yankee Protestant aristocrats, so go over or scroll down to aristocrats and click on Yankee Protestant to find the Yankee Protestant aristocrats, you'll see under political strength, their wealth rating is 16. And so because they are above the 15-point threshold, they are eligible to vote. Also, since their literacy rating is 56.9%, they get an additional 30 points of political power. If you really want to dive into the specifics of this, you can click on the movement and then click up here on the supporting POPs tab, and you'll get a breakdown of what POPs are supporting the law, and you can get an idea of their political strength. So if you want to make a movement more powerful, look at the POPs who support it and what their political power is. Changing your distribution of power law might give a movement more or less political strength based on who that law will allow to vote and how much political strength it gives them. So all of this is to show what this support number means. The support of the abolitionist movement is relatively low right now. Below that is the activism rating. The levels here you need to be concerned with is that if activism is at least 25%, the movement will help you enact laws that they endorse and will add to the stall chance of laws they oppose. Same goes for movements that don't have laws listed at all. They won't factor into enacting those laws. So if it's not listed down here, the specific law, they're not going to have any type of effect if you try to change one of those laws. If activism reaches 50%, they'll start to create radicals in your country. And if it gets very high, the movement will create an insurrection or try to secede. The pressured interest groups section shows you which interest groups have POPs that support the movement. Basically, the more political strength a POP has, the more they pressure their interest group to support this movement. As I mentioned earlier, the bolster and suppress buttons are now part of the political movement system. So you can bolster a movement, which means the movement will have a better chance of attracting POPs. Or as the game puts it, it will give them more attraction. And with suppress, the movement will have a more difficult time gaining POPs. If you click on the effects tab, you'll see a breakdown of how this movement is affecting your country. For instance, you'll see that any interest group that is pressured by the movement, or so any interest group that appears on this overview tab, new leaders of that movement have a higher chance of gaining the abolitionist character trait. You'll also see how the movement will affect the passage of certain laws. So the abolitionist movement will give you an additional 9% to the success chance of slavery banned. You can also see a detailed list of how interest groups are being pressured by the movement. Remember, the movement pressure is also accounting for the political power of the POPs. So when you look at the industrialists, 5.07 thousand out of 18.3 thousand individuals support this movement. That's about 28% of their population. However, their movement pressure is 29% because the 5.07 thousand people that support it have a certain level of political power, which adds to the movement pressure. So let's start trying to enact slavery banned. And we'll let the game run for a moment to see the effects that has. So we are trying to enact slavery banned, and you can see it's adding to the activism of the pro-slavery movement. They are now at 65%, which is protesting. Since this number is above 50%, they are now creating radicals in the country. If you click on the effects tab, you'll see they're adding 15% to the stall chance of passing slavery banned. As we let the game run, you'll see how they will become insurrectionary. Once the activism hits 75%, now at 77%, they have seceded from the government and started a secessionist movement. So the box on the right here shows you how much you need to worry about revolutions and secessions. Unlike how these worked before the Pivot of Empire DLC, not every revolution needs to be addressed. When this box pops up, you'll see how many armies, navies, and states the revolution will take once this bar reaches 100%. Pay close attention to this because sometimes this revolution box will pop up, but they'll only have one state and only take maybe 2 armies. So you can let the revolution reach 100% and it'll be very easy to quell. This secession, though, is going to be very difficult. You'll see they're taking 7 armies. And if you look at our total standing army, you'll see our total standing army is 11 armies, and they are going to take 7 of them. So they'll be taking the majority of the standing army. This doesn't, however, account for conscripts. So when calculating if you can take them on, you'll want to consider how many conscripts you can muster. Same thing goes for the total number of states that they'll take and which states they are, shown to you by this number right here. And then you can see a breakdown of the states right here that will go with this secessionist movement. If you let the revolution go to war, meaning this bar reaches 100%, you'll lose whatever resources are being created by these states. An important note, once a revolution or secession starts, meaning this box has just popped up, not meaning it reached 100%, but once the box pops up at all, you can't eliminate armies or conscripts anymore. You can add them, but you can't take them away. So if you haven't allocated all of your conscripts yet, allocate them with care, because once you add a conscript to a state, you can no longer take it back. So let's say now we start adding a couple conscripts. You'll see we've added them, but now we can't take them back. And don't add conscripts to states that will break away. So meaning these states here, don't add conscripts to those states, because once the revolution starts, you're not going to have those conscripts. If you hover your mouse over the box, you'll see a red outline of what states will break away. You'll see interest group logos at the top of the box. These are the interest groups that have withdrawn from your government. These interest groups will no longer be a part of your government during this process. So if you go over to the government screen, you'll see here the Southern planters and the almond farmers are in active revolution. And so you cannot add them into the government. Once this process starts, if you don't want the revolution to go to war, you can stop enacting the law. So you'll see here, if we go over to law and cancel this, and you let the game start running again, the secession will go away. Now, this will only work if the bar does not reach 100%. Once the bar reaches 100% and the revolution goes to war, you can no longer do that. But before the bar reaches 100%, you can stop enacting the law and the secession or the revolution will go away. Be careful, though, because it's possible to have another movement become revolutionary because you stopped enacting a law they want. Remember earlier we saw that the abolitionist movement is indifferent to slavery banned. That means at the current moment, the abolitionist movement won't revolt because you stopped enacting slavery banned. However, this can change, so keep an eye on the movement's opinions of certain laws. If you do get into that loop where enacting a law causes a revolution and stopping the enactment causes a revolution, look at how many armies each revolution will take and decide which war is a better one to fight. Keep in mind, though, that if you stop enacting a law, there is a period of time that you have to wait before you can try enacting it again. So now, with slavery banned, you'll see we have to wait 24 months before we can attempt passing it again because we canceled the enactment of this law. If you stop enacting a law and a movement starts a revolt, it's possible that the bar will reach 100% and a war will start before you are allowed to begin enacting the law again. All right, so the short of it, what does this mean while you're playing the game? In a nutshell, you can use movements to help you pass laws. If a movement wants a certain law passed, you can bolster them using the button here to attract more pops to the movement and maybe change your distribution of power law in order to make certain pops more politically powerful. Keep an eye on the outliner over here while you play the game to see which movements are gaining more support and, more importantly, what their activism is. If their activism reaches 50% or higher, meaning this number on the right side reaches 50% or higher, they start to generate radicals. If you want an agitator, so one of the people over here, to become the leader of a certain interest group, that agitator will join a movement, and you need the interest group to be pressured by the movement in order to make the agitator the leader of that interest group. The bolster and suppress buttons you used to see on interest groups are now on the individual movement screens. You can use them to attract more pops to a movement or deter people from joining a movement. Let me know in the comments if you found this helpful, or if there are other videos you'd like me to make, let me know. Otherwise, see you next time, and be awesome.